blackboard, their favorite subject is English. Small forward Alex English, that is. A silky shot and a knack for an easy basket has established him as one of the NBA's perennial scoring leaders. He's routinely challenged by double-team defenses, but that rarely slows down his immense talent.
English lesson. Do you know who scored 2,000 points in 8 consecutive seasons? Do you know who scored the most points in the 1980s? Who had one of the smoothest jump shots ever? It was this guy, Mr. Silky Smooth, Mr. Nugget, Alex English.
Our Snub 25 list has already included some of the best and greatest scorers from the 1980s. Scorers like Bernard King and Adrian Dantley. But there is one scorer that eclipsed them both in terms of points. One scorer who ruled the 1980s with his jump shooting, post scoring, and penetration inside. In a decade that housed Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, Moses Malone, Dominique Wilkins, Karl Malone, and Michael Jordan, this scorer was greater than them all in that decade. I present to you someone who was one of the biggest snubs of the list, one of the most underrated scorers of all time, and the greatest, that's right, you heard me, the greatest scorer of the 1980s. That last part, which is not up for debate. Alex English, and he has a right to have his name discussed for the NBA's top 75 list. Alex English, the 6'7" small forward, was drafted by the Milwaukee Bucks in the second round in 1976, back when the NBA had 10 rounds in the draft. He didn't start to show his scoring ability until 2 years later when he went to the Pacers, where he averaged 16 points. But that was only a small fraction of his scoring ability. His ability really started to show when he got traded to the Denver Nuggets, where he made his name and his game flourished. From that point on, he will be one of the best scorers of his era. Anything inside the three was his for the taking. He was a great jump shooter with a really good-looking jump shot. He could shoot from any spot inside. He was quick with his moves and footwork. He had one of the best post-up games ever, where even a double team couldn't stop him from scoring. Up and unders, turnaround fadeaways, Alex was unguardable in the post. And in the paint, he was even worse. If he was driving or in the post-up position and got to the paint, you might as well put 2 points on the board because he was a monster inside. He was so talented at scoring the rock that he earned the nickname Blade for cutting up the defense. While being a member of the Nuggets, English made 8 All-Star teams, 3 All-NBA second teams, as well as winning a scoring title in 1983. As I mentioned earlier, English was the greatest scorer of the 1980s. He has the most points in that decade, scoring 21,800. From 80 to 89, almost 2,000 more than the runner-up Moses Malone. If you think that's crazy, just listen to these points per game average in that time span. His first full season with the Nuggets in 1980-81, he averaged 24 points. Then the next year, 25. Then 28. Then 26. 28, 30, 28, 25, and 26. That's almost a decade of not averaging less than 25 a season. The real definition of a bucket getter. He's the Nuggets' all-time scorer as well as their all-time leader in field goals. He even finished 7th all-time in points at the time of his retirement in 1991. He is currently 20th all-time, which is still impressive, along with being 11th all-time in field goals made. Scoring was his best attribute, but English had other abilities that he was good at as well. He was a really good rebounder for his position, and he was underrated defensively even, not to mention a great passer to go along with that. English not only is the Nuggets' all-time scorer, but also their all-time leader in offensive rebounds and their all-time passer, leading the Nuggets in assists all-time. You might be saying, wow, all that is amazing, but why isn't he on the list? Well, there's a simple answer for that. He was overshadowed, just like other entries on our list. English was the type of player that let his game do the talking. He wasn't very cocky or arrogant and didn't really vocalize himself. He was more of a humble type of player that didn't put himself out there with his voice or flashy type play. In an era that included guys like Magic, Bird, Zeke, and Mike, that wasn't the best for him. However, in the grand scheme of things, when you're as good as a scorer as he was, you don't have to be flashy or vocal. you could just go out there and ball, which he did. Not only did he do it at a high level, he did it in arguably the toughest era of basketball in terms of competition and physicality. The greatest scorer of the 1980s is a feat that should not be taken lightly. The way he was able to score with the defense they were playing back then is nothing short of spectacular. And he did it while being efficient, shooting 51% for his career. Even though he doesn't have a ring to his legacy, he still led the Nuggets to many wins and meaningful basketball play. With him as their leading scorer and best player, the Nuggets went to 9 consecutive playoffs, with Alex upping his points per game average in the biggest stages. He even led them to the Western Conference Finals in 1985, but eventually, in a losing effort, losing in 5 to the eventual NBA champions, Los Angeles Lakers, led by Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Even in a losing effort, English was sensational in those playoffs, averaging 30 points, his highest average for the playoffs in his career. His time with Denver made him synonymous with the team, as he helped put them on the map in the NBA, being their all-time greatest player for their franchise. All in all, Alex English has been seen underrated for far too long. He's the greatest player to play for the Denver Nuggets, making them contenders in the 80s. He's one of the most skilled and talented offensive scorers we've ever seen, and he is the greatest scorer in one of the greatest and toughest eras of basketball, being the 1980s. So, let me know. Does Alex English have enough of a case to be named to the NBA's top 75 list?